you ever felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or stuck wasting time in admin instead of growing, leveraging, and scaling your business? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate, the podcast that's all about handing off what you don't need to do so you can focus on what you do best. So here's your host, Bonnie Schutz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Delegate to Elevate, Get Stuff Done podcast. And I am your host, Bonnie Schutz. I am joined today by my good friend, Sarah Senst. She is the founder of Encore, Living Your Best Second Act. At 61, Sarah isn't afraid to talk about age, neither am I, or much of anything, really, neither am I. That's why we're soul sisters, with a no-nonsense, yet compassionate approach. She shares her journey of reinvention and resilience and confidently steps into life's next chapter. Love it. Now, as the founder of Encore, Living Your Best Second Act, Sarah empowers women over 50 to embrace their transitions, redefine success, and design a future that aligns with their wisdom and experience. She understands that reinvention isn't just about what's next. It's about who you become in the process. Whether you're an entrepreneur, service provider, or professional navigating change, Sarah's insights will inspire you to approach your own encore with strength, confidence, and a touch of boldness. Welcome, Sarah. It's nice to see you.
Hello, wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Sarah and I met through, I have mentioned in the past, a group that I have just linked onto probably for the past 6 or 7 years called Second Act Women. And so we are definitely both second actors. Yeah. Sarah, maybe third actor. Maybe I'm a third actor doing this podcast thing.
Yeah.
But I love it. So Sarah, tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you've done in the past and how you've come to this new act and what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's a great question. So currently I'm a very unique combination of a licensed professional counselor and coach. And so I offer both services. That's a combination that's not easily found. So it's usually one or the other, but It's worked out really well. And I serve a lot of people with all those skill sets. So I started out in a small group practice and then ventured out on my own in November of 2019, opened my own private practice. And so that's been about 5 years. And since then, I've created on my own a 6-figure business, which is also very an unusual industry standard, by the way. Therapists aren't known for making what I consider to be a fair income. But I was able to do it. So that's been really exciting. And that career didn't start for me until much later in life. I got my master's degree in counseling at like 49 years old and didn't start that career until I was like 50. And now I'm 61. So it's doable. You're never too old. That's true. And we won't spend too much time on it, but my first act was in residential real estate. So I sold houses. I loved it.
That's a pivot.
But the market, it was great. But the market crashed in 2008. And we know how that story ended, and I had to pivot. And here we are, and I did it. And
here we are.
Like I said, I wasn't 28. I was 48 and 49. So
I feel you. We're two peas in a pod. You know, I've shared with the audience here that same thing. I was nearly 3 decades in corporate as an executive assistant, pivoted to an entrepreneur and also in a multi 6-figure company.
Excellent.
Owning that. Now starting a podcast, and I guess my third act. Who knows? Sure. But if we know anything at our ages, is we have some life.
Yes.
We have been through stuff.
Yes.
We have been through things,
right.
You know?
It's true.
And, and if we can't embrace our age and be proud about that distinction in this side of life, and knowing what we know, we should know the number one thing as an entrepreneur is to not do everything yourselves, right, Sarah?
So true. I tried. I did try.
What have you tried?
Tell me what you've
done. Yes. Tell me what you've delegated so far and what was your experience like?
Oh, gosh. Yes, it's a great question. So a little bit of a lot of things eventually, but it is important to say, and we chatted about this earlier, I had the common mindset of, oh, gosh, let me just do it myself. I'll get it done more quickly. I'll get it done the way I want it to be done. and it'll just be finished and I won't have to, mess with anybody else. And that's not right thinking. That is not good business thinking. That is not productive thinking. So to answer your question, to go over a few things, I ended up delegating payroll. So even though I'm an entrepreneur, I have an S corp, and within that, I pay myself payroll, and I have a payroll company. Even though right now I'm the only employee, or at least W-2'd, right?
Me too. Same as me.
Okay, yeah. And that has been amazing. I don't want to deal with tax forms. I don't want to file forms. I don't want to do any of that.
I know. I don't blame you.
Yeah, that's
Take that off your plate.
Off my plate,
does
payroll,
not bring you
skincare.
joy.
And you know what? Literally, I don't think about it, and I get paid every month or however I have
love
it
that.
set up,
I don't
right?
think about it part. I don't have to think about it. I love that.
Don't have to
That's
think
good.
about it. And I don't wear it on my shoulders then, that means. Right?
Yep.
So I've done that. That was excellent. That was only about 2 years ago, not so long ago.
Yeah. I'm
then,
pretty new.
For any of us that are trying to maybe grow our business, scale our business, have a social presence, I tried to step into the social media arena. Well, that's fun on an entertainment level, but if you're going to do it for your business, that's a whole nother animal. And so I ended up hiring a social media manager who helped me with content pillars, right? Topics, and then content calendars to plan distribution of posts and things. Now, I want to say she did a great job. I did not do the follow-up I needed to do. And I think it's important we talk about this too, because it's the real part of our business. I'm just as guilty of working in my business and not stepping back and working on my business. So as my caseload builds, I jump right back in, and there goes social media as the perfect example. But in her defense, I want to say she did a great job. She did what I hired her to do, and it would still be great today if I was implementing her strategy. So it's not any fault of her own. But I share that because I think I'm not the only one that does that.
You are not at all. And that's what I'm hoping like we can convey in this podcast is I say this almost every episode is you are not alone. We all feel that way. And I am empathetic to all professional service providers in that and totally guilty of it myself. And I have a VA agency and it's like I have 7 VAs that do things for me, but do I have one that supports me as an executive assistant? Nope.
Maybe that's in your future.
Right. I want one, but it's, how they say doctors are the worst patients.
Yes.
I am the worst at delegating to an EA since I've been an EA. And it's like, it'll happen. I mean, I'm learning from this podcast myself.
Yeah. Well, we do. It's sort of like Dr. Heal Thyself is the other thing, right? It's like, as we learn, it's like, oh, hello, that's a really good idea. I need to do that.
Why did we go out on our own, right? We went out on our own for freedom to do things like this, freedom, vacations, spending time with our grandchildren, our family, our dog, or whatever, going on walks, exercising, doing the things because we've lived that life. And now we've earned our place in being able to. But when you and I are not delegating and we're doing everything ourselves, we ain't going nowhere. And we're back into the hustle and bustle and grind, which we should not be in. And I love to be able to pull that into kind of our shtick together here, being over a certain age, because we have freaking earned this. We have earned the ability to say, you do this. But what I've talked about a lot in past episodes is, once you get past, like for me, it was the money investment, the financials. I loved being a no debt business. And I'm like, when did I talked to a money mindset coach a couple episodes back and I actually coached with her, but boy, when do you invest and when do you like let go? And that's my biggest bugaboo is the money and the expenses. I won't, because I turned to an S corp as well and had to pay a paycheck and boy, but let it go. I've sang that in an episode before too. Let it go. Sometimes, YOLO, man.
Right.
As the kids would say.
Yes.
I think that's actually not a young child thing. That's a millennium like my children. But yeah, if we just learn to let things go, we will find what we're looking for. And I was the exact same way when it came to like my social media. And the reason I did my social media was because in my corporate career, I was an EA, like I mentioned, and I couldn't be creative. So I kind of enjoyed doing social media. But
Oh,
then
sure.
after meeting other entrepreneurs and listening to them, they're like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I can do what I want, and
Yeah.
nobody can
Right.
speak like me and nobody can do like me. But what I've
Yes.
been preaching here is there is an episode I really highly recommend if you haven't listened to. It's called The 7 C's of Effective Delegation. And the biggest is communication, and clarity is another one. It's
Excellent.
about communicating what you need precisely and making sure they're asking questions back to you, right? So everything is clear and delivered with compassion and empathy for what's going on in their human lives. As we know, things happen. Not every pairing works. Like if your social media person didn't work out, she was great. You admitted you just didn't get it or you didn't want to get it. That happens too. But you have like a delegation muscle in you. And I compare that to like a spectrum. We all have a
Mm.
different ability to delegate on a spectrum. And you start with the baby little hand weights as you're building the
Yeah, sure.
muscles. And then you get to Gold's gym guy or whatever,
Yes.
and you have to be able to self-identify where you are on that, and you can grow. You can grow, get to
Absolutely.
know people that know a little bit about it, and you can grow that muscle. And that's what I'm hoping people will do by listening to this podcast and hearing what other entrepreneurs and professional service providers go through. We're all in it together. So let's share the info. Let's share how we
Absolutely.
get there.
One thing I think that's so important about learning about the art of delegation, the
Mm-hmm.
practice of delegation, is that it buys you your freedom. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, if I hire that person, now I have to manage that person. Now I've got to
Yeah.
communicate with that person. And it can start to feel a little restrictive.
Mm.
But I think when it works well and it works the way it's supposed to work, delegation buys you your freedom.
Yes. It gives you back time, which for you, obviously, as a therapist and coach, you're me
Is
too. I'm
huge.
just going to say me too. Our
Yes.
hourly rate is so
Yes.
valuable right now.
Yes.
Like the time we spend, doing all the things is not worth it. We're not,
Right.
if we're worth, let's just throw out, we're like $100 an hour. That is like, we're doing $20 an hour work. And that's
Absolutely.
not where we need to be as entrepreneurs in our business, especially S Corps taking a paycheck. Like we need to get paid.
Absolutely.
We've earned that paycheck. So yeah, I know I love this because, also because we're in so similar of a situation age wise, and I'll say it, and our dear friend Barb will slap me on the hand. But yeah, I have those menopausal moments that I've mentioned many times. And I have that Gen X in me that's like, nobody can do it as good as I can. And that's hard to
Yes.
get rid of that in my head. But, and I still have heaviness in the evenings, thinking about the money I've invested. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that go into
Yeah.
this. And
There are.
now I totally get why people that are in the entrepreneurial field or industry, how they feel like sometimes just like throwing in the towel. I'm going back to work. I get it.
Yes.
I never thought I would. I
Yes.
thought I want to do this forever and ever and ever.
Forever. Yes.
But there's been those moments, those down moments
It's
that I just,
tempting, right?
yeah. I mean, you have to let somebody go. That was a recent one for me.
Ooh.
How did you break up with your social media person? Did it just kind of organically
Well,
happen, or did you have to say, I'm done?
yeah, no, I mean, I took full responsibility. I said, you've
Yeah.
done a great job by me. I haven't done a great job for myself. And I said, so in
Mm.
an interest of time and money on your side and mine, I'm going to pause. That's all, really,
No, that's nice of you.
until
Yeah.
I'm ready to recommit. It was all about me, nothing about her.
Oh,
The
that's
other thing
nice.
I did do, which I want to support you because I know in your virtual assistant
Mhm.
world, I did also hire a virtual assistant. That
Okay.
person handled some website redesign for
Mhm.
me, some upkeep. She did
Yep.
some social media work for me. She did some linking up of some blogs and some articles that I've been published in, podcasts that I've been on. And so
Yep.
I had an arrangement like a retainer with her. And so she did like X amount of work with me. And I've done that a couple of times. That's been
Okay.
really beneficial. And so
Awesome.
I wanted to be sure to mention that because that's been
Thank you.
great. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that shameless plug
It's a
for me.
great service. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I will shout it from the rooftops. It's one of the best things that I've ever done in my own business. And it's funny, I'm not saying that just because I have a VA agency, but giving things like getting creative, like what I did with some VAs on my team, is I up-leveled some VAs on my team to scopes of work that were a mid-level management type
Oh,
of
wow.
scope. So they
Yeah.
became virtual account managers. Get creative, people. Just if
Yes.
you have a VA that's doing an awesome job for you, but you've noticed they're like super organized, you can bring in a second VA, let the first one be the lead and be your like project manager, and the second one that VA delegates to. And
Nice.
there's so many things you can do. VAs work within marketing agencies and they do marketing. It's like amazing. And I don't want to keep cheering on my VAs, even though I love them, because there's so many other professional service marketing agencies. Like I'm working with a fantastic marketing agency on this podcast, and
Right.
bookkeeping was one of the first things I gave up. Money
Yeah.
and me, no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that has to do with payroll too, because that's within the bookkeeping. But
Don't you
yeah,
think
so
it's
there's
important that we also, as entrepreneurs and business owners, we start to need to really recognize our blind spots? So where
oh,
we can get this attitude of, I'm going to work on my own, I'm going to do it myself, I can do it better than anybody else. That's not true. And it's not intended to be true. So
right,
I have worked really hard. Like I'm not good at details at all. So a virtual
right.
assistant is perfect for me. Right.
They're the details and they enjoy it.
And I don't get down on myself for that. I just
No,
recognize it as a blind spot. I hire it out. It's covered. It's handled. I'm good. And I
no.
move on to the things I'm good at.
Yeah.
Again, freedom. It frees me up to do the things where my sweet spot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the full intention of outsourcing and taking things off your plate so that you can do you, whatever that may be in your
Yes.
in your catalog. Me, I
Yeah.
like to travel. I
I
like
know.
to I
Great.
started roller skating.
Awesome.
I mean, there's just little things I like to
So
do that
good.
if I was still running every last thing in my business, there's no way I could be doing
There's
that.
no way, right?
No, no. So
Talk
would
about
you
the
say
quickest
then
way
that,
to talk about the quickest way to burn out is to not delegate.
oh, I love it. Yeah, I will quote you on that one for sure. Yeah. I had less things delegated in my business when I felt on the edge of burnout. But that's when you know, I'm going to use the right words here. That's when I talked to myself and said, you don't want to feel this burnout way. So what can you do? What do you do as a living? You have this
Yes.
team of VAs and you sit here and you sell and you market your VA services.
Yes.
Well, why don't you think about taking some of that off your plate too, so you can feel the way you're touting to your clients? I'm like, wow,
Absolutely.
yeah. Absolutely. I may
Good for
have to
you.
invest some money, but if you are dedicated and open to the possibilities of what else you could do as a visionary, the leader, or the face of the company, when you delegate it off, I don't want to say the little things because nothing's little. Everything's an important piece of the puzzle, but
That's a good
the
point.
things that aren't the most important, that bring you the biggest revenues and bring you the
Yeah.
most exposure and put your face out there the most, then, where are you going to go? You're going to stay,
Yeah.
you're going to level out. You're not going to
And
move
stay right
anywhere.
there. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. I
Stay right
mean,
there, if not burnout, right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even you could speak to this and we'll speak to our audience, because women over a certain age, do we get there faster to the burnout thing than younger ones, just because we've lived such a life and we just don't give two things, about it anymore? Or do you
Maybe.
see that happening in your practice? Like as we get older, we just like give up easier, or are we more determined? What would you think is the
Yeah,
more
I think
suitable?
we're more determined because I think and would like to think that we're better able to use the wisdom, meaning all the experiences and all the lessons we've learned along the way. Now we have time to put them to use. So I'd like to think that we aren't as quick to give up. And I think that
Good.
our tolerance level does rise a little bit. Our skin
Mhm.
gets a little thicker.
Mhm.
But I do also think we get to a place where we don't care so much about what everybody thinks about us anymore.
Say it out loud and proud.
Yeah,
I don't
the
care what you think
reason
of me,
the
people.
reason that's important is I think we can make better decisions because when we're not worried about what others think about us all the time, we're focused on the
Yeah,
problem at hand and making a good decision with that and not worried about opinions of others. And I think that's
that's
a
so
really
true
great
because Yeah, I've seen the evolution in myself since I started
Yes.
the business when I left corporate at about 48 when I
Okay.
started
Okay.
it, and now I'm almost 57.
Yeah.
So I have seen myself evolve to where I was mothering and nurturing my people I was delegating to. And
Yes.
now to have the ability to, cut the
Yeah.
cord and say, I
Right.
have to let you go because you are not giving me what I'm throwing at you.
Yes.
You're not giving back. You're not producing like you used to.
Right.
I've done that recently, and that was a real difficult thing for me, but not as difficult as it would have been 5 years ago. So I
Absolutely.
think
Or
age is
10 or
definitely,
20 for
oh,
sure. Yes.
oh yeah, I could have never.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a
Right.
mom, I started my business to nurture and help single mothers and stay-at-home moms and military wives and things like
Right.
that to grow and shine. But you know what? Darn it. As older I get, I'm like, it's my turn to get
Yeah.
something, right?
Yes.
So
Sure.
go women over 40, 50, 60 plus. Woo!
There's
Yes.
time. It's not too late to change. It's not too late to live the dream. There's so many
No
things.
expiration date on us.
No, I love
Mm-mm.
that. So
Mm-mm.
true.
And the more you can give out the things that you delegate to women of a certain age, the better. I love having VAs on my team that are older women or women that have aged out of corporate roles that darn well if they went back, they aren't going to get hired because of the ageism thing going
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Or you
Right.
cost too much, or
Yes.
now we can say I cost too much for you,
Yeah.
so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna
For you,
stay
right?
here. Yeah,
You can't
so
afford
I'm just
me.
right.
Yeah.
So now it's like I'm
It's
gonna do
true.
my own thing, and it's been it's a great feeling for me. How about you? Getting into
Yeah.
this and just
Oh, I
embracing our
love it.
second act. Yeah,
It's a
I do
great
too.
time in my life. I love it. I think it's
It is. It
exciting.
has its ups and downs. Let me tell you, with the whole body and the whole changes of life, but
It
and the
does.
emotions are there. I do cry quite often, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like random cries, but sometimes they're good cries and
Yeah.
I just recently looked that up, and a good cry is good for you.
Oh,
It
it's so good for
releases
you.
everything.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I think I just posted something on my socials about crying because I've always been accused of being a crybaby.
Have you been a
Um,
cry? It's okay.
but I'm an
I
empath. I
describe
just
it as
care
like
about people.
I describe it as a shower for your soul. Like our
I like
soul
that.
needs cleansing no differently than our shell. So we've got a
Mhm.
shell and we've got a soul. They
Right.
all need cleansing.
I like
We
that.
cleanse our shell when we get in the shower or bath. We cleanse our
Mhm.
soul when we shed tears.
Oh, wow, mine's really clean.
I love
Ask
it.
my siblings.
I
Ask my
love it.
mom. Yeah. God bless, may she rest in peace.
I
She
know.
I know. It's a hard part of life, and I kinda like having you for that little niche in this
Thank
discussion,
you.
because I think a lot of my, listeners to this podcast are women of a certain age, and so I want them to know that I know, I see you, I am
Yes.
you,
Yeah, it's
and
true.
we are only better because of our experience and what we've been through in life, and supporting each other is what we can do best. I am
Absolutely.
doing that with the people I'm bringing on board who I'm outsourcing things to, and I encourage you to do the same if you fall into that pot with us.
Yeah, great.
Nice. So, as we wrap up, is there any last tip or trick that maybe you'd either give to the audience or give to yourself for new consideration as we're having some revelations here during this
Oh, yeah,
chat?
I love that. I guess to the audience, I would encourage just at least if you've not been able to delegate yet to just try it and test it. So, because to sit back and say it doesn't work or it's not for me and you've never tried it is not a fair statement to make. It's not fair to you.
Right.
So it's like, go test it, go try it, see how it works for you. It might take a time or two to find the right fit, but it's worth trying. And for me, what I'm going to take away is just the reminder that there's more still that I can delegate.
Everything. I just think
And
about my company when if it's just me, I still think of my 30 years in corporate. I think
yeah,
there was an executive assistant, there was a marketing department, there was a department. I think of those things in my head. Oh my God, I could delegate that. I could, farm that
excellent.
out, this and that. And then
Such
here
a
I'm
good
still doing
point.
this. keep what you like to do, but also be able to recognize that maybe that's not the best use of your time, i.e. Bonnie doing her own social media.
It's so true.
But yeah, what you said is perfect. And I'll close on that and
Great.
tell everybody that we will share some more about Sarah Moore. You can find her online in the comments below. I hope you will continue listening to the podcast. Like, share, leave me some comments. Let me know if you have more questions for Sarah. We'll bring her on again. I love my women over 40, 50, 60 plus. So I'd love to hear even more from you. And I hope that you will delegate a little bit more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Wonderful day. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
So that's it for today's episode of Delegate to Elevate. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Bonnie herself. Be sure to head on over to delegatetoelevatepodcast.com. That's with the number 2. And pick up a free copy of Bonnie's gift and join us on the next episode.